bird's eye view. Alright, it was a 23rd Regimental Combat Team, about 4,500 soldiers, and they were fighting 25,000 Chinese soldiers. The United States, we had the technological advantage, correct? We can all say that we did. What did the Chinese not have?
Air support.
Air support. How important is air support in battle? Extremely important, alright? So even though we were outnumbered, we had those battlefield multipliers. We had air support. So 4,500 against 25,000 might seem like a complete loss, but because we had tanks, air support, and just well-trained soldiers, we were able to win this battle. So because the United Nations forces had air support, what did that force the Chinese to do? Fight at night. Who said that? Nice. Nice answer, yes. It did help for us having air support to do resupply, and the fact that the Chinese did not have air power, by the time they got south of the 38th parallel, their supply lines were so thin, with a lack of planes, they had no supply lines. But because we had the air superiority and the Chinese didn't, it forced the Chinese to fight at night. How difficult is it to fight at night? If you can't see where you're going, how hard is it? Extremely difficult. So, what do you need? What do we bring with us all the time? Commo, right? We bring communications. Every battle, we stress the importance of communications. What did the Chinese have?
Drums.
They had drums and basically whistles and horns and trumpets. So we had good radio communication, and we were able to talk to our soldiers on the ground. Colonel Paul Freeman, when he was in the center of his perimeter at his command post, he was able to talk to the battalion commanders on each side of him. But for the Chinese 25,000 in the surrounding hills, they had just a few radios to talk to a few designated commanders. But the soldiers on the ground, the only thing they had to go off of was sirens, horns, whistles, and drums.
Let's go.
So I do have another trait. Another trait for a resilient soldier or a resilient person in general is they practice acceptance.
That is so.
So from the day to day, we can all say that life throws at you whatever life throws at you. You're going to have your stressful situations, and you're going to have your painful situations. I mean, it is what it is. And pain is always going to be painful, and stress is always going to be stressful. But what resilient people do is that when they're in a painful or stressful situation, they accept it. They don't deny it, ignore it, or wish it went away. They accept it. They come to terms with the situation that they're dealt. So for the soldiers in the battle of Chipyong-ni, how does that apply to them? Would a soldier on the perimeter of the battle of Chipyong-ni be a good soldier and able to fight if his mind is thinking that, man, this situation really sucks, I wish I was somewhere else? Okay, so for everyone that's just getting up here, we point out the rock right here. If you look closely, you can still see areas where bullets hit the rock and chip the wind. Through the road that you can see cutting through the two hills, that was the road south. And the Chinese were on both of those mountains right there, cutting off the 23rd Regimental Combat Team from heading south. So, on the third day, on the 15th, a huge column of tanks led by, was it General Cromez? Led by General Cromez came crushing through the Chinese defenses to rescue the 23rd Combat Team. It was on the 15th. But that is the road south. Over here, to your left, this is where all the Chinese bodies were dumped after the battle. So if you can imagine actually 500 Chinese bodies dumped in this general area. So the people of the town of Chipyong-ni, when they came back, that's what they found. Or that's where they put the bodies. Really? That's such a... Right here, yeah. So this right here, standing on a hill, it's the southern portion of the perimeter, as the HQ for Lieutenant Colonel Freeman was only 700 meters to the north. So, if you can imagine, if this portion fell, and the Chinese forces were able to penetrate this area of the perimeter, that would have been it. because it's only 700 meters with nothing between them and the regimental HQ. So this was a pivotal position, and this is where Lieutenant Colonel Paul Freeman's main focus was during the battle. When he positioned his 155 millimeter howitzers, he literally put it right on the inside of this hill, and he faced it north. So this portion of the battle was the one segment that wasn't covered by those 155 millimeter howitzers. And that's also another reason why the Chinese decided to pick this as a position to attack. Howitzers couldn't support it. There was also the 23rd Regimental Combat Team's ticket home south. And they cut them off and they attacked here. The first night, Golf Company did pretty well up on the hill. They didn't suffer too many casualties. And it was just really a lot of patrols testing the lines to see where the strengths and weaknesses were in Golf Company. And that was the first night. When they discovered where the weaknesses were, they attacked in force on the second night. And at that time, as you can imagine, the Chinese forces would come up basically to the bottom of this hill before really we could start engaging them. And I don't know if you saw in the video, but you're talking about waves of Chinese soldiers that are hyped up on drugs and with absolutely no consideration for their own health or well-being.
그러면 이 집회 전투 당시 이 자리에서 46년 42전사자의 명복을 위해서 우리 모두 함께 묵념을 하도록 하겠습니다.
So let us pray for those 42 people killed in action on this spot.
일동 묵념.
Let us pray. I'll take a moment of silence real quick and reflect on this battle, right? Everything you learned today. Because, like Lieutenant Hughes is saying, this is really the battle that kind of turned the tides of the war in favor of the Allies, right? The resiliency that these soldiers here showed, these 4,000 soldiers against 25,000 Chinese North Korean troops, was really what allowed us to catch on this tie the war, reclaim Seoul, and then kind of end the Korean War. It all started right here, right? Think back to what we talked about today in terms of resiliency, but also remember the soldiers that we lost 70 years ago, and that if there was ever a conflict here again on the Korean Peninsula, we could find ourselves in very similar situations. All right. All right, let's take a moment of silence, please. So now let's take a group photo in front of the memorial. We'll run through a quick AAR and then get on the bus.